Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is The Raptor, and the end of Death Battles Season 10 is nearly upon us. This season felt like it zoomed by after the late start, coming out every 2 weeks with no breaks for the first time ever. And now that we know the full 2023 lineup, I think it's time to throw out some ideas for next year's season, before any early reveals except for Wile E. Coyote versus Tom Cat, of course. I think I should make it clear first and foremost what this video is trying to do, because I've seen a lot of people complain about how matchup prediction videos are just matchup wish lists in disguise. But I think there's still a place for videos dedicated to personal ideas, as long as they're labeled properly. This video is sort of a mix. It's primarily an ideas video, meaning what I'd like to see, but most of the ideas are rooted in various kinds of reasoning for why I think they could happen, on some level at least. Now, I've brought up a lot of matchups throughout these videos, many of which still haven't happened yet and very well could happen. I don't want them to take up any of the slots for this video because that's lame, but I also don't want my hope for them to be overlooked. So here's a few of them, or you could check out my other ideas videos linked in the description for more information. I'm going to start this list by picking 3 matchups that came from the last 2 years' champion events, those being a 2D and 3D fight from the champion poll and a fight from the Tournament of Champions. I know the tournament just ended, but I'm pretty sure not every single fight in it is off the table for Season 11, although I can't imagine there would be that many, if any at all. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. From the champion poll, there are some fights I think would be awesome, like Simone versus Kyle, or Finn and Jake versus Mordecai and Rigby, and I think they could be fairly likely. But when picking one 2D fight I think is the most likely, I'm actually gonna go with Captain America versus Kamen Rider Ichigo. From a trends perspective, I feel like this one has a bit more going for it. Not only was it a big deal on the poll, but it also got a successful Death Battle cast episode, and Captain America 4 was planned to come out next year. I know it's been delayed now, and the Cap in that movie isn't Steve Rogers, but I should say that in the Batman vs. Captain America commentary video, Ben Singer literally starts a sentence with, "Alright, first time we did Cap." So, it could just be a weird choice of words, but I wouldn't be surprised if another Cap episode was in development at that time. Considering all of this, and that Death Battle knows we've been talking about Kamen Rider matchups, it feels like there's too much pointing to it happening in Season 11 to ignore. And I don't mind that at all. I think this is a unique fight. I'd love to see Kamen Rider make its debut and for Cap to come back. Obviously, there's no guarantee, but is this one at least likely within a year or two? Yeah, I think so. For my 3D champion poll selection, I was going to pick Kratos vs. Asura as the most likely one, up until it showed up in the Tournament of Champions as well. Maybe Death Battle is just trying to stay unpredictable, but I don't get why they would even put it in the tournament after the poll if it was planned for 2024, although who knows. To go with a safer option, I'm picking Spy vs. Agent 47. It's not that the other 3D matchups are unlikely, this one just seems to have the most widespread support in general. I've expressed my general support for this matchup a few times already. I think it brings a great set of connections and contrasts that might be a bit of a balancing act tonally, but could be done properly in my opinion. TF2 coming back is long overdue, everyone knows that, and after John Wick got his own episode, I think this is Agent 47's best chance to get in, or at least to get in quickly. There are definitely people who like these characters way more than me, but I still really like the vibe of this matchup and fully understand why it's been backed so much before. It'll probably happen someday, but I'd appreciate seeing it soon. And for my Tournament of Champions pick, this one kind of has to be more personal because there's just so many of them, and a lot of them I've brought up in these videos before too. Theoretically, Death Battle could choose to do a fight from the tournament based on how well it did in it, but I'm looking at this more from a what could they have already been planning perspective. So when trying to pick one that I like, haven't talked about before, and have at least a bit of confidence in for happening, I think I gotta go with Sackboy versus Maxwell. For one thing, this matchup in my opinion is so much fun to think about. I loved Scribblenauts as a kid, and the sheer creative potential this fight comes with is off the charts. Everything about it is unique. The presentation, the characters' powers, the very games they come from even, and yet it still has so much going for it in many aspects of a would-be episode. I also think it has a couple things things going for it as far as likelihood. We know at least 1 or 2 people on the Death Battle team are a fan of it, meaning it's already somewhat in circulation, and right now we're actually in between Scribblenauts and Little Big Planet's 15-year anniversaries. Again, this does not guarantee anything, but I truly believe it could be awesome, and Death Battle has proven how crazy their fights can go when necessary. These days, I'm not as worried about Death Battle biting off more than they can chew. This fight is pure insanity, but I know they could deliver. Okay, now we're finally getting into matchups that have nothing to do with champion events, but we still gotta be reasonable in thinking what could pop up. And one that I'd like to mention sooner rather than later for that reason is Sly Cooper versus Lupin III. There have been a few instances within the last year where Death Battle has expressed great interest in ideas that come up during Death Battle cast, matchup discussions, etc. It happened with this one, Light versus Columbo, obviously, Mikey from TMNT versus Jay from Ninjago, even Valentine versus Armstrong was thrown out as an idea to commemorate the 2024 election. I didn't want to fill up too many slots with instances like this because that'd be kind of boring, so for picking just one, I think this has the best combination of likelihood and what I'd be hyped for. Nothing against the other ones though. Pretty much everyone in the Death Battle cast episode seemed very taken with this idea. Its support has been growing in the community too for a while, and Sly definitely has other options, but with how popular of a character he is, you'd think something would have happened with him by now if Death Battle really liked those other options. This to me looks like their chance to put him in an episode they'd be really passionate about making, and it's definitely growing on me too. The material these guys have I think would be quite fascinating to go over, and their charm and capabilities combined would be perfect for a show like Death Battle. This is far from the only matchup the crew has expressed interest in, but I think it has a real shot for next year. Next up on the list, we have Escanor versus Whitebeard. Yeah, I've talked about this one a bit in other kinds of videos, but this is an anime matchup I think could stand out among the rest in a very fun way. This would be such an over-exaggeration of manliness, which can make for some funny writing all around. The characters are genuinely impressive too, with potential for great fight choreography, and it seems like a solid pick for filling out part of their anime quota. This kind of stems from how Death Battle likes to introduce never-before-used anime each season, and I think Seven Deadly Sins could be a top contender, and I definitely don't think One Piece is out of the question either, because I don't know exactly when Death Battle would want to bring Luffy in, but come on, if Naruto can average nearly 1 episode per season, One Piece can certainly get more than 3 fights. Overall, I feel like this is an easy choice for an anime battle. Not the best one by any means, but one that anime lovers could recognize for its merits and enjoy for what it is. Although, knowing this community, I might be speaking too soon. Moving on down the line, we have Gwen Tennyson versus Adam Eve. I am very inclined to believe that an Invincible matchup is in our near future. Death Battle could easily have one come out as season 2 of the series is finishing up, or shortly after that, which if anything would help their views. I wouldn't be surprised if they just did an episode with Mark himself, even though I'm not in love with really any of his matchups, and some matchups with other characters I think are quite cool, but I personally don't see being very likely right now. So again, when trying to get an average of what I'd like to see and what I more so think could happen, I land on this fight. Its Death Battle cast episode did quite well. Liam Swan even said this was the Invincible matchup he's most invested in, and honestly, I think these are characters who deserve some extra spotlight. They have enough material surrounding them specifically to make for complete and interesting analyses, and their powers are so rich and versatile that I think could create a genuine debate. No, this is not the best matchup in the world or anything, but I think it could be a fun time, and it involves 2 series I like a lot. I wouldn't have any significant reason to complain, so I'm not going to come up with one. Next up, we have Plankton versus Mr. Mind. I recognize that this matchup has never been incredibly popular, even regarding cartoons and comics alone, but it just clicks so well for me from a simple thematic standpoint. The gimmick here is so effective and entertaining in theory, to the point that the final product could unironically be amazing. Yes, that goes for the animation, but also the analyses. These two have been in so much ridiculous shit over the years that I don't think it couldn't be fascinating and hilarious. Not only that, a matchup like this strangely makes a decent amount of sense considering what episodes came before. We've now seen how strong SpongeBob characters and other cartoons can be, so strong in fact that aside from putting them against each other, I think putting one against a legitimate DC character is the next logical step. I could see some people getting excited by that kind of comparison. I personally just find this kind of matchup really hard to hate. I understand if some people don't really think it needs an episode of its own, but I can't stop thinking about how much personality it would have if it got one. I can only hope you agree. Following that up, we have Neo versus Kirito. There was a time when this idea really did not vibe with me, and I seem to remember it being quite controversial, at least for a time. I'm not sure whether or not that still holds true. But either way, I've come to the conclusion that if we just allow a mutual virtual world or something for both combatants, this could be a sick episode. I can already imagine just the imagery and environment, let alone how their powers and skills play off of each other's. And honestly, after Rick versus the Doctor, I don't think slapping animation and live action together is any kind of issue. As long as you're just staying true to the characters and adding enough elements from their series, there's no reason the combination of media needs to be awkward. SAO also seems like a probable enough anime to be brought in, and with The Matrix having recently come back, along with all this talk about getting red-pilled, I could see the team having an appeal for it. This wouldn't be the first time we've seen virtual world characters on the show, but that as a theme is still pretty unique, so I'd be excited to see what Death Battle could make out of that. Getting close to the end, we have Deathstroke versus Taskmaster. Okay, I had to get one DC versus Marvel fight in here. I still love both series, and we know we're gonna get like 2 or so next season, so not putting one in at this point is frankly just illogical. I still hold to it that Mysterio versus Scarecrow is arguably the next big one, but to bring something else up this time around, I gotta go with this one. Considering how crazy good Death Battle has been with their animations this past year, I would really love to see how they handle a classic super martial arts battle. I think that could look better than ever these days. Obviously that could take various different forms, but I also just love the concept of these characters. Slade is one of my top 3 favorite DC villains ever, Taskmaster is a complete badass too, and their analyses could just be riddled with insane feats and victories, which I'd get so much fun out of. I suppose I could see Deathstroke fighting Soldier Boy, but I say save him for Peacemaker eventually. This to me is the true fight for each of these combatants and could make for an episode as well-rounded as the fighters themselves. I just really like the idea. And finally, for my last slot, I was planning for a while to throw in Mickey Mouse versus Bugs Bunny since it's such a big matchup and one of my all-time most wanted. However, with Wily versus Tom now confirmed, I'd rather see the Looney Tunes episodes get more spaced out. I guess they could have been planning it before the Tournament of Champions was over, but that would not be my preference. So instead, I'll replace it with one of my other most wanted cartoon fights, Perry versus Skipper. I think there are cartoon matchups that are better from various perspectives, but I can't deny how drawn I am to this. It's not one of my most wanted episodes ever necessarily, but it kind of gives me similar feelings that Stitch vs. Rocket did, but to a lower degree. I was such a Phineas and Ferb fan back in the day, I enjoyed the Madagascar movies and the Penguin show as well, and I just love these characters' sense of confidence and appreciate the humor that comes with them too. More episodes of Phineas and Ferb have been confirmed for a while now and are coming in 2024, so I could see that having been considered for season 11. I guess they could have been thinking about a Doofenshmirtz fight or something, but I'd want this more personally. It's just one of those fights that's meant a lot to me over the years. I like the material involved, and I think it translates quite well to an enjoyable Death Battle production. I couldn't ask for much more than that. Alright, that took a while, but that's everything I gotta say today. If you have any other ideas you think could make it into season 11, or just any fights you want to see unconditionally, feel free to let everyone know in the comments below. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, but either way, thank you all so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see what's coming for us in 2024. See you next time, and peace out.